Welcome back to the Sacred Arts Academy, where we talk about all things from the practical to the sacred. Today, we have an amazing topic about how to break down mental barriers when it comes to physical transformation with Roman. Roman has successfully assisted many individuals in their journey to transform both their physical and mental health. His overarching objective is to bring about positive changes in people's lives, addressing not only their bodies, but also their minds, regardless of diverse fitness aspirations, whether it be gaining muscle and strength, shedding excess fat, undergoing a body recomposition, or simply enhancing flexibility and mobility. Roman is dedicated to guiding individuals on the path to become a better version of themselves. Welcome, Roman.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. This is such a timely discussion because we're at the beginning of the year. Everyone has some great aspirations for 2024. And in my own physical journey, I have found that I cannot just focus on the strength training or the cardio or whatever the case may be. I also have to focus on my own mental kind of changes or transformation. I'd like to know a little bit about what inspired you to make a change and start helping others.
Yeah, definitely. What really inspired me were a few different things in my past, in my life. One of which actually being my brother, my younger brother of all people, actually started picking up weightlifting, and he started picking up weights, and he got into fitness. I forget fully how he actually, now that I'm thinking about it now, he got into fitness with the exercise and weightlifting aspect, of fitness when he saw a lot of the movies like Rocky and a lot of other, movies that focus on, becoming stronger and just better, just a better version of yourself. So that inspired him, but ultimately him doing that actually inspired me. Funny enough, my younger brother, it usually goes the other way, but in that instance in my life, that's what got me into actual just weightlifting. Because him and I both growing up throughout, school and everything, my brother and I both were more of the skinny kids in our school. And seeing him weightlift and just make that gradual but really, really effective transformation with his body and his overall physique, it really encouraged me to want to pick up the weights myself. So after I did that, I just never looked back. I mean, I felt, stronger, was getting stronger. I also felt just much more confident. I slept better and I just had more energy as a whole. So that's what really got me into the weightlifting aspect of fitness. Now, I'll admit, with that being said, I didn't really have my diet or my nutrition in check or in proper order like it is currently today. I mean, I'm super strict. Not to say that I'm not a little flexible, and I like to have like a very occasional cheat meal. Not that I really need it because I have strong willpower, but my willpower back then, though, with like what I was eating, what I was drinking, was not really in check, despite my weightlifting finally being in my life. And so, what actually led me to cleaning up my diet, so to speak, if you want to call it a diet, is were actually a couple things. One of which was really researching and diving into what's all in our food, what all is in our, drinks, like everything that we're consuming on a day-to-day basis, just the overall ingredients. So there's so many things that they put in our food and our drinks, and it's overwhelming, especially if you're not very familiar with what these ingredients are. And oftentimes you can't really pronounce any of them or very few. And that's how you tend to know that they're probably not good to consume or put in your body, period. And that's what I found out. I really, really did a lot of research and a lot of investigating on my part and on my end. And I came to the, yeah, realization that a lot of what they put in our just foods and drinks are not, it's not really healthy. It's not healthy at all. And it's sad because a lot of people aren't aware, and some might be aware, but they just don't really care, or they don't think it's as, problematic as it really is. because just because it doesn't affect you now does not mean at all that it will not affect you in the long run or later on in life. So that's what I came to realize. And speaking of that, the only other thing I can say, just topping off of that, was my grandpa. He actually was part of, that circle where he wasn't always aware what he was putting in his body that was bad for him. But in addition to that, he didn't always take the time to really research or see what he's consuming. And so he was a heavy, heavy sugar addict, to say the least. And I was too, but him just having that heavy sugar addiction over decades and several years, it catches up to you, catches up to anyone. But sadly, it caught up to him. He was super addicted to the added sugar, that he would consume with what he was drinking. He had a lot of sodas. He ate a lot of candy, just had a lot of just anything that had added sugar in it. And so ultimately that led to, and if it really, of course, wasn't the only thing that led to him getting cancer, but it was one of those driving, driving forces, if you will. And so knowing that, that really obviously was hard when I found out and heard the news about him getting the cancer and then ultimately passing away due to that, said cancer. And so that made it really rough for me, made it rough for my family, just everyone I knew and loved in my family, just the whole family circle, just really, really was devastated by the news. But after finding that out, and after so many, I'd say weeks to maybe even a month or two, I finally not only had the pain that I was dealing with, but I was able to finally channel that pain then into a more productive, way or manner, if you will. So instead of letting it affect me in a negative way, which of course it did for the very, very beginning, but after that, I channeled that, pain for fuel. I basically turned that pain into fuel and used it for fuel so I could actually have it for inspiration to not eat the same way and live the same way that he did. So not only to make him proud as if he were still here physically, but also to make myself proud, just make myself healthier, not go down that same path he did. And then, of course, from there, I just started feeling better when I got into a healthier eating habit. And then beyond that, I wanted to share that same exact routine and that same exact lifestyle with everyone I knew and everyone I loved around me. And then from there, I got addicted to doing that. And so I really branched out and wanted to help just everyone I could, everyone that was needing and willing to get help. I just helped, one body at a time, helped one body at a time from there. And ever since, it's just been a journey that I've never looked back on, and I've just kept going full force and full throttle.
Mm, I love there's so much to unpack here because you started off with your inspiration being your younger brother. And I think a lot of us out here can actually identify with that because my younger sister is a personal trainer
Nice.
and she inspired me. I actually lost 30 pounds last year. And she did my whole plan and really helped be that guiding support. So I love the idea of finding inspiration, of having also somebody that you can kind of look up to that has done it or is doing it. And you can actually witness, like, oh, this is possible. And you start to make little changes here and there. And I also love what you said around, you didn't start with your diet, you started just with the physical aspect of it. And I think what a lot of us out here try to do is we try to be like, oh, I'm going to be so good. I'm going to only eat these things and I'm going to go to the gym every single day. And we tend to like overwhelm ourselves with this new lifestyle change that we're not used to. And so I guess where I'm going with this is how do you ease people into a new routine? How do you coach them into like making these changes without trying to eat the whole elephant at the same time?
Right, right. So obviously, yeah, it's not something whenever you're not conditioned for fitness, especially, It's not something you just jump right into full throttle right away and you actually get overnight results. No matter how hard you go at the very beginning, you'll never get overnight results. Just for anyone out there right now listening or watching, definitely, it's not something that you can just get overnight. And just like with anything in life, nothing really is overnight. Things take time, especially things that are worth it and things that are, big, big goals. Big goals, no matter the goal. If it's a huge goal, it's going to take time. So definitely just do not disappoint yourself and don't set yourself up for disappointment by expecting and thinking that you're going to get overnight results because it just won't happen. But you will get results. They're just gradual over time results. And so knowing that, just having that mentality and that mindset going in from the very beginning, from the very start, that's important. So first and foremost, just dialing in your mindset the proper way. After that, just have a really gradual and a really small plan to begin with, especially if you're just starting out in fitness. So instead of thinking that you have to work out 4 to 5, and some people do 6 days, not to say that's not not to say that's not good or it's not something you shouldn't do, but I don't believe it's something you have to do, even if you are experienced. But I say instead of doing like 4 to 5 days a week and acting like you have to be perfect with all your workouts, all your meals, instead, just work out even 2 to 3 days a week just to start out with and focus more on full body for those, 2 to 3 days for that, those first few weeks at least. That way you're getting yourself, or you're really just getting your feet wet, so to speak, and you're getting your body conditioned for yeah, just for fitness, and you don't have to worry about setting yourself up to fail or setting yourself up for disappointment and frustration. Because the worst thing you could do, not to say that you shouldn't try to get results as soon as you can, but the worst thing you could do is try to rush your results. And the worst thing you could do is try to do too much too soon or too much at once too soon, to be really specific. So definitely don't overwhelm yourself and overexert yourself because that also can be bad for you physically, not just mentally and emotionally, but it can also put too much stress on your body if your body's not used to it. So making sure to doing, I would say just full body, especially if you're trying to do, fat burning exercises, I would say do full body circuits. So going from one exercise to the next and doing a series of workouts or exercises in that circuit, and then just not taking or a rest or a break until the very end of that, circuit, and then rest for about a minute and go back at it a couple more times. So I recommend doing that, focusing on weights, but doing lighter weights when you when you're first starting out.
I love that you presence that because I'm one of those that classically, I try to do my goals and like really just go for the results as soon as possible. And that just has never worked because I've tried doing okay, I'm going to eat no carbs and, be keto friendly and also go to the gym Monday through Friday. And I just peter out so fast because it's so hard because my body's not used to it. I'm cranky because I've taken away all the sugar and the carbs.
Right, right,
And now I'm like overexerting myself. And so, what I really learned last year is exactly what you just said. I told myself, okay, I'm going to go twice a week. These are the 2 days I'm going to go. I'm going to see if I can even keep that up. And I was able to. And then pretty soon I had like the gym bug where it's like, okay, I'm going to go 3 times a week. And eventually I was going 4 times a week because I was really loving my results. And then I was ready for, okay, I'm going to start to eat cleaner, stop eating out and start to make more meals at home. Because there was something else that you presenced earlier, which is around the processed food, not just like the junk food in like the fast food industry, but even like in the stores when you really start to look at the ingredients, and start to learn how things are processed, it's a little scary.
Oh yeah.
And I agree that a lot of us like turn a blind eye because it's easy. Everyone's doing it, and we don't want to kind of believe that these things are on the shelves. Can you tell me a little bit about your journey there and kind of discovering what's in our food and how that changed your point of
Yeah.
view?
For sure. So there's a lot of different ingredients, like I was saying, that are thrown into our foods and drinks that are obviously toxic, especially if you do your research, you can clearly point them out. So knowing just all the ingredients is important. But when back when I was really first getting into this and actually investigating what's in our food and what's in our drinks, I saw a lot of the ingredient labels. And when I started seeing the ones I could not pronounce, I was just, I had that feeling or that gut feeling inside me, and it was telling me this is probably not good for you and your body. So that alone was just a red flag. I mean, if you can't pronounce something and it's in your food, it's like, wait, I mean, it's not to say that's not good for me, but it's probably not good for me if it's in my food and I can't even pronounce it no matter how hard I try. So that alone, but then also when I started looking up, like I had to really look at each letter of some of these ingredients because I could not, really put it in my phone and research it otherwise. But I really analyzed each ingredient, and a lot of it led to cancer, Alzheimer's, I mean, etc. So, I mean, the list goes on and on, like how many bad things can come to your body, especially in the long term. I mean, of course, if you have it once in a blue moon, it probably won't affect you, at least not for a long time, but cutting it out of your diet as soon as possible is my best recommendation. But when people consume this stuff on a daily, day-to-day basis, that can definitely affect you a lot sooner. So when I researched that, though, I'm like, yeah, that alone, that's not good. But then seeing all the added sugars too that go into our food and the preservatives like BHT, for example, I you see that in a lot of cereals, and some of which, a lot of people consume on a very, very popular basis. I know one being bran flakes. Some bran flakes, cereal boxes have BHT in them to preserve the freshness. And it's sad because a lot of these companies that, really pump out these cereals to the markets or grocery markets, they are seeing this stuff as a way to make money. So they're trying to, protect their profits as much as possible and preserve them by preserving their food. And it's sad because yes, it helps their profits, which from a business perspective to them is good, but it's not good when it's at the price, literally at the price of people and their health, especially. It's just like it's crazy. It is nuts. And people are, they're putting some good ingredients in their body, but sometimes these healthy foods aren't always healthy too. Like bran flakes with the preservatives, some of them, like even some yogurts that I remember having, like Chobani, has some good ingredients in it, has some, you know, good nutrition, but it has a lot of added sugar in a lot of the Chobani yogurts. And that's the thing. I mean, people think it's healthy, but it's not really healthy because you have all that sugar in one small serving of yogurt. And that's the problem. So a lot of those things where sometimes they seem healthy and they're not. It's basically like or it's basically a wolf in sheep's clothing. That's what I was trying to say. It's basically a wolf in sheep's clothing when it comes to food. When you have some of these healthy foods that are actually not. Gatorade, that's another example. A lot of people think that, I mean, the electrolytes, no doubt, are good. And some of the vitamins that you can get in some of these Gatorades, but all that added sugar and some of the artificial colors that they sometimes put in the Gatorade, it's not good. So that's another thing to be careful of. And it has a lot of salt, a lot of sodium. So you got to also be very aware and be very careful that they pump a lot of salt and sugar in our foods, not to mention all the preservatives and artificial colors and ingredients. Those are just a few examples that I picked up on when I've
Yeah.
been through this journey where some foods, some drinks seem healthy, but they're not, or they seem like they're just not healthy at all and they're not healthy. So it depends, but a lot of it is deceiving for a lot of people because they're not very accustomed or aware to what's actually in our foods and drinks.
How do you go about finding like a healthy replacement for some of these things, like the Gatorade or the cereals that you want to eat in the mornings? Like, how do you go about doing that research?
Right. So what I recommend, I mean, first and foremost for the Gatorade, I recommend just having water, preferably spring or purified water with electrolytes in it. Typically, alkaline water is a way to go when it comes to trying to get the electrolytes. That way, there's no sugar and very little salt. If there is salt in your water, it's very minimal. And then it has the electrolytes typically, especially if you get the alkaline water. And then it's clean, it's pure. So that's a very, very solid replacement for your Gatorade or Powerades. I would say for sugar, opting organic if possible, but then also you got to be very aware of you got to be very aware of this because a lot of organic cereals tend to have added sugar in it too sometimes. So having an organic cereal with very little sugar is key. I do know one cereal in particular. Uh, Typically, Nature's Valley is pretty good, but trying to find Nature's Valley organic cereal that doesn't have much sugar, that's the key. So just trying to find a organic cereal with very little added sugar, if any. That's what I recommend having. Or if you don't like cereal, you could also have just regular organic oatmeal.
I love that. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. There's something else that was really interesting in your story earlier around your grandfather. And, having cancer in the family can be very traumatic. So it sounds like you're really kind of healing some of that trauma, some of the choices that were made by your ancestors in terms of the addiction to sugar, because sugar really is a killer.
Oh
Sugar
yeah.
actually feeds the cancer, which is why so many cancer patients are not allowed to eat sugar, because that's what makes it grow, right? And so I understand the motivation behind that, but it's also not a small feat to like change your mindset and make that decision that you're no longer going to do that. So, can you tell us a little bit about how do you mentally prepare yourself for this kind of shift? Because you mentioned yourself, you were even kind of addicted to sugar as well. So, how did you make that transition and how did you ensure to stay consistent?
Right, right. So yeah, definitely it's not an overnight process and it's something that just takes time and a lot of focus and even a lot of mental and emotional energy, really. Because a lot of people, when they're so accustomed to having a certain thing, especially when it comes to sugar, yeah, usually addicted because sugar, specifically added sugar, is yeah, one of the worst things that you can put in your body and it's really the equivalent, and it's probably even more than the equivalent of having a drug or a drug addiction. So, sugar is just one of those things you got to cut out as best as you can. But the thing that I personally recommend, just from personal experience too, is knowing that other than it's not going to be an overnight thing and it will take a lot of time to, phase out of your life, it also at the same exact time is something that can be done though, but knowing that you have to gradually replace it with something else. So instead of having, let's say, three, or really even before replacing it, just weaning yourself off of it and then replacing it with some natural sugar. So what I recommend doing, and this is actually how I did it, because I remembered being a cashier at a grocery store and it was so hard. I was thinking of all the sugar I had, all the candies I had, and then ringing that stuff up at the register. Some people would get, licorice. That's one of the candies I was addicted to, but a lot of licorice, a lot of sodas, and all that stuff. And seeing that just day in and day out, it made it hard because I was already breaking that out of my life, but I was seeing that just on a day-to-day basis. And it just made it that much more difficult to cut that stuff out of my life. But what I did was instead of having, let's say, just a whole or a whole 2 bottles of soda, I only had one. And then I gradually had maybe half of one and then about a, a quarter of one, and then I had none. So I just really gradually just decreased my intake from my candy to my sugar with the soda that I was drinking and everything else. But also, what I did, and this actually helped me wean myself off at the same time, was I replaced having some of these sodas and some of these candies with natural sugar. So I had more orange juice, I had more apples, bananas, and just more, yeah, just more natural sugars that are found in your fruits and even fruit drinks. But you also got to make sure if you're going to have, orange juice or apple juice, try to have the ones without added sugar because they also try to get you there. They'll try to put some added sugar in some of your fruit drinks. So knowing that, that's also very, very critical. But yeah, definitely just in a nutshell, trying to replace some of what you would have throughout the day from, added sugars like candies, cakes, and sugary cereals to more natural sugars. So instead of having high sugar cereals, maybe have like some oatmeal with a banana. And that's a great way of doing it, for example. And that's something I tried and it worked. I mean, again, it wasn't overnight, but it definitely worked in the long run. And then also you could have instead of, you know, candy or instead of soda, you could drink orange juice, apple juice, grapefruit juice, whatever you like, unless you don't like grapefruit, which that's not everyone's thing. But yeah, definitely just weaning yourself off gradually and replacing those added, sugar, cereals or foods or drinks with more natural sugars, just typically found in fruits.
Makes sense. You mentioned wanting to transform the world one body at a time. How do you envision this change, and how can each individual play a part in this larger transformation?
Right, right. Yeah, so the best way that I found, or wait, can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah. How do you envision the change in wanting to transform the world one body at a time? And then how can we individually contribute to that larger transformation?
Definitely, yeah. So, what I envision most with transforming one body at a time is transforming everyone from the inside out. So, starting internally, because like that's where everything happens, especially up here. So, your mindset, first and foremost, just really getting your mindset dialed in before anything else. Because if your mind is not in the right place, your whole body will not be in the right place. And really, as an end result, your whole entire life will just not be in the right place. So making sure your mind is dialed in properly before anything and just having a positive and just go-getter mentality, a positive, consistent, disciplined mindset. So knowing that each day, right as you wake up, it is definitely, for lack of a better word, it's a blessing to be alive, to have that next breath and start the day knowing that you're still here and that you actually do, in fact, have a purpose because you're still here. So that alone, just knowing that. Beyond that, having the mindset that not everything is going to go as planned and that you have to make adjustments. You have to sometimes improvise every once in a while if need be. And then also that results, again, are not just overnight. And it's a long-term process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I know it's kind of cliche. It's been thrown around a lot, that saying, but it is definitely true. It's not something that you're just going to achieve right away or overnight. It definitely comes in phases. And that's why they have, for workout plans, they typically have phases because these things come in phases. It's definitely not something you just achieve tomorrow. But yeah, so having your mindset right. And then also another way is ultimately then transforming the person's body from how they look. Yeah, just from where they were to where they could be. So maybe they were a bit overweight, making it from that and turning from that to more just toned. muscular, stronger, and just more confident as a whole. Or maybe they were skinny and going from more skinny to more muscular and stronger and just overall more confident in that regard. So just different ways I envision, but typically it's gaining some muscle, some strength, and just being more toned and just more lean. And then just having a clear mind, more confident mind, and a more productive, positive mindset in the process. That's what I envision in a nutshell for each and every person, one body at a time. And that's how I can say that anybody else could definitely benefit from that same exact method and that same exact mindset that I have for everyone else.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the mindset portion of it because that's something I really worked on last year. And I knew I couldn't do it by myself because there have been certain things that have been told to me, right? Either by parents, siblings, friends, that really stuck with me. And to have a different perspective, I really needed to go outside of my circle. So, I had a therapist. I also did Reiki. Like I did a lot of energy healing on myself to it with the intention of healing whatever part of me in my psyche was holding on to me not deserving to be healthy or me not deserving to be a certain size. And what really came out of that was like something that had happened to me when I was like 15 came to the surface. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even realize that I was holding on to that. And so, just to add a little bit of a deeper layer to the mindset part of it, it really does require a concerted effort. And you may not be able to just wake up one day and be like, okay, this is like the new me. You may need to go out and actually find someone like you, Roman, who's able to coach somebody through it and or a therapist and or whatever it is that you're attracted to in terms of modalities. I think
Right.
that's super important in the fitness and physical transformation path.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You just got to have that mentor sometimes, that mentor, that guide, and just the overall strategy to get closer to your goals and not even always fitness goals. Definitely, that's a key thing, but also sometimes just your mindset, just to dial in your mindset before anything.
For sure. Yeah. So I feel like I could talk to you forever about this topic.
No,
So we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. What are your offerings? Where can people find you or follow you?
yeah, for sure. So if you just want to find out more about me, about what I do, the people that I've helped, and just their overall transformations and even testimonials, and hey, if you need some help with your mindset and your fitness goals, then you can find me at my personal site, romanfisherofficial.com, or I'm on social media at Roman Fisher Official on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and even LinkedIn if you use LinkedIn.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. This was so fascinating. I think I learned a lot today. And for all of our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, let us know what you thought of it down below in the comments, like and subscribe. And I will link all of the socials and Roman's website down below for easy access. I want to thank you all for listening. Thank you, Roman, for coming on and sharing your wisdom. And we'll see you all next week.
Thank you.